He leads one of the poorest nations on earth, yet lives like a king above kings. Kim Jong-un's billionaire lifestyle is not just shocking, it's calculated, weaponized, and hidden in plain sight. From armored trains to private islands, every detail reveals how luxury becomes power in a totalitarian regime. And if you stay until the end, you'll see the one asset that even the UN can't seem to touch: the $5 billion paradox. In a country where electricity shuts off by nightfall and rice is rationed by the spoon, one man lives as if borders, sanctions, and poverty don't exist. Kim Jong-un, the supreme leader of North Korea, holds an estimated $5 billion personal fortune, a staggering sum that accounts for over 12% of his nation's entire GDP. That figure doesn't just defy logic, it insults the very idea of governance. This isn't wealth accumulated through legacy or private enterprise. It's built on monopoly control over North Korea's economy, from state-owned mining operations and textile factories to a secretive network of smuggling routes. At the center of it all is Office 39, a shadow entity responsible for everything from counterfeiting foreign currency to trafficking endangered wildlife, arms, and even cyber attack. It's a criminal empire cloaked as a government agency, one that doesn't report to Parliament but directly to Kim. Through this apparatus, billions move off-grid, some wired through obscure Macau casinos, others laundered via shell companies in Southeast Asia. While global sanctions aim to freeze assets, Office 39 adapts like malware, always shifting servers, names, and banks. It's financial shape-shifting designed not just to survive scrutiny, but to thrive beneath it. And what does $5 billion buy in a country where the average person earns less than $2 per day? Palaces, private islands, vintage Bordeaux's, Swiss watches. While children starve, Kim dines on imported Kobe beef and Iranian caviar flown in on aircraft that never appear on any flight log. His lifestyle isn't just excessive, it's deliberately disconnected, a performance of wealth designed to project godlike power while his people remain unseen. But here's what makes it more chilling. This paradox isn't hidden, it's part of the mythology. Inside North Korea, propaganda shows him sacrificing for the people, even as he disappears into luxury rail cars lined with gold-trimmed armchairs. Abroad, diplomats whisper, analysts speculate, but no one cuts deeper, because sanctioning a dictator is easy. Stopping a state-funded ghost economy, that's another story. So while the world sees famine and firewalls, Kim sees assets, and he knows how to protect them. Comment: power isn't always visible if you believe real empires aren't built on laws or borders, but on what no one is allowed to question. The Palace Empire. In a country where even heating fuel is scarce, Kim Jong-un has carved out an empire of palaces so vast, so extravagant, they rival the lifestyles of Gulf royalty. Officially, he owns nothing, but behind military checkpoints, surveillance towers, and biometric gates lie at least 17 luxurious residences, scattered across the mountains, coastlines, and capital of North Korea, in North Korea. At the heart of this empire is the 12-square-kilometer Ryongseong residence in Pyongyang, a fortress disguised as a mansion. From satellite images, it resembles a royal park, but inside it contains Olympic-sized swimming pools, private theaters housing thousands of imported DVDs, horse stables, a shooting range, and an underground bunker system designed to survive nuclear strikes. The walls are lined with Italian marble. The doors weigh more than armored bank vaults. It is a kingdom within a state, sealed from the outside world by minefields and anti-aircraft systems. But this is just the crown jewel. Beyond Pyongyang, Kim's residences follow him like shadows. He owns sprawling villas in Wonsan and Sinuiju, many with private access to the sea, helicopter pads, and luxury spas. One of his most secret compounds includes an artificial island equipped with jet ski docks, water parks, and Olympic training facilities, all reserved for personal guests, trusted generals, and the dynasty's inner circle. Security at these estates is handled by elite military regiments, trained not just to guard, but to vanish. Surveillance drones sweep the skies. Communications are monitored in real time. Every villa has its own power grid, food supply, and emergency air filtration. They are not homes, they are strategic strongholds, built with one goal: to ensure the leader can rule, escape, or vanish on command. And all of this stands in grotesque contrast to the rest of the nation, where most homes don't have running water and families cook over coal stoves. While citizens queue for rations, Kim's palaces remain stocked with imported champagne, climate-controlled wine cellars, and custom furniture flown in from Switzerland. These estates aren't just symbols of wealth, they are instruments of control. Each palace serves a purpose: loyalty testing ground, diplomatic stage, private retreat, or military contingency site. They reflect a regime obsessed with security, performance, and absolute separation from the people it governs. In North Korea, borders don't separate nations, they separate reality. And inside these compounds, a completely different one is playing out, gilded, guarded, and utterly untouchable. Luxury on rails and in the sky. When Kim Jong-un travels, he doesn't just move, he commands space. And no vehicle captures that better than his infamous 90-carriage armored train, a steel leviathan wrapped in secrecy and military-grade engineering. To outsiders, it may look like Cold War nostalgia. In reality, it's a $200 million mobile palace. Each carriage is customized. Gold-trimmed conference rooms, bulletproof lounges, satellite communication hubs, and full kitchens serving gourmet meals from imported ingredients. Security forces are stationed at every third carriage, armed and on alert. Windows are blast-resistant. Even the train's movement is choreographed. Preceded by reconnaissance units, followed by backup engines and rerouted tracks cleared by military teams. Speed is sacrificed for dominance. This train moves at half the pace of a commercial one, but for Kim it's not about arriving quickly. It's about ensuring no one knows when, where, or how he moves. Each journey is a disappearing act staged across hundreds of kilometers. In the skies, the theater continues. Kim's personal aircraft, a modified Ilyushin Il-62M, nicknamed Chame-1, is a relic dressed in luxury. On the outside, it resembles a Soviet-era workhorse, but inside, it's a flying sanctuary. Mahogany paneling, plush seating, encrypted communications, and room for an entourage of elite officials. While global aviation watches for sanctioned tail numbers, Kim's planes operate through unregistered airstrips deep inside North Korea, invisible to civilian radar. He also controls a small fleet of lesser-known aircraft, each customized for different purposes, one for diplomatic appearances, another for decoy operations, and others for covert travel to bordering allies. Fuel is pre-secured through underground deals, while flight paths are plotted to avoid international airspace entirely. And when he's not on rails or in the air, he's at sea. Kim's collection of yachts rivals Mediterranean royalty. One vessel, reportedly worth over $7 million, includes an on-deck pool, personal cinema, helipad, and imported Italian leather interiors. Another, dubbed the Floating Palace by South Korean analysts, features jet ski launch pads and luxury dining rooms styled after Versailles. These sea assets aren't just for leisure, they're tools of mobility and concealment, docked at private piers guarded by elite forces. When movement is the greatest vulnerability, having a navy of floating safehouses becomes a strategic asset. Across train tracks, runways, and open waters, Kim doesn't just travel, he vanishes, surrounded by steel, silence, and the illusion of being everywhere and nowhere at once. Imported excess and gourmet obsession. While the average North Korean survives on state-rationed corn and soup, Kim Jong-un dines like a monarch from another century. His table is set not by national resources, but by smuggling channels and global indulgence. And every bite he takes tells a story of control, contradiction, and curated fantasy. Each year, Kim is reported to spend over $30 million on imported luxuries. Not weapons, not medicine, but wine, cigars, and delicacies most of his citizens have never even heard of. His favorite, Kobe beef, flown in from Japan, costing upwards of $600 per pound. It's served alongside Iranian beluga caviar, rare French cheeses, and Bordeaux vintages from Chateau Latour and Petrus, bottles that fetch $5,000 to $10,000 each on auction markets. His private cellar, according to defector accounts, includes premium Louis XIII cognac, Hennessy Paradis, and a library of vintage champagnes from Dom Perignon and Krug. One shipment, intercepted by South Korean authorities, valued the liquor at $1.5 million, a single order for a single man. But it's not just about taste, it's about performance. Meals are served on custom porcelain, sometimes in banquet halls built exclusively for select guests, military elites, family loyalists, foreign envoys. Every course is part of the mythology. Kim is a man who commands the world's finest, even while barricaded behind borders. These indulgences are sustained through the same illicit networks that fuel his entire regime. Black market procurement, sanctions-dodging front companies, and diplomatic bags that pass customs untouched, all orchestrated through Office 39, his shadow economic engine. The gourmet obsession is more than appetite, it's strategy, using food as yet another layer of power projection. And all of it plays out while millions in the countryside face chronic malnutrition. Reports estimate over 40% of North Koreans are food insecure, with children suffering from stunted growth. In contrast, Kim's dining habits are bloated not just with calories, but symbolism. In a regime that controls everything from hairstyles to harvest quotas, the leader's menu isn't just private, it's sacred. It's a signal to insiders and outsiders alike. The rules don't apply here. Comment, the table defines the throne if you believe power isn't only shown in missiles or palaces, but in what's served when no one else can eat. Designer power and gift politics. In Kim Jong-un's North Korea, loyalty isn't rewarded with medals, it's bought, and not with currency, but with timepieces, handbags, and horsepower. The deeper you serve the regime, the closer you get to his circle, the more luxurious the compensation becomes. This is not bribery, it's a system, refined, structured, and deployed with the precision of statecraft. North Korea's political elite don't just rise through ideology, they ascend through material proximity to the throne. And the reward isn't status, it's tangible. Rolex watches, Amiga Seamasters, and Patek Philippe Calatravas are handed out like official seals of allegiance. Not purchased openly, of course, but routed through diplomatic bags, offshore shipments, and courier deals that never appear on any ledger. Wives of senior officials are spotted carrying Hermès Birkins, Chanel classic flaps, and Louis Vuitton capuchin bags that retail for anywhere between $10,000 to $200,000, depending on material and rarity. These aren't fashion choices, they're political markers, worn in closed gatherings to signal access and insulation. The handbags are as much about message as they are about elegance. Cars are no different. While the streets of Pyongyang host mostly aging local models, the elite glide through in Mercedes Maybach C600S, Lexus LX SUVs, and Toyota Land Cruisers. Vehicles often obtained through complex smuggling routes and front companies in the Middle East or China. A Maybach delivered in this manner, customized with security features and blackout glass, can easily reach $500,000 in value once inside North Korea. This ecosystem is what analysts call gift politics, but it's far more transactional than ceremonial. Luxury goods become currency. Watches are loyalty retainers, cars are lifetime guarantees, bags are unspoken contracts. These objects operate in a closed-loop economy, reinforcing hierarchy, dependence, and control. And none of it functions by accident. The distribution of these items is carefully calculated. Who receives what, when, and in what context? A general who crushes dissent, a villa and a Swiss-made clock. A diplomat who secures contraband routes, a limited edition Mont Blanc and a German sedan. The item is never the gift, it's the binding thread. In a regime where fear sustains order, opulence ensures silence. And when silence can be bought with crocodile skin and a Swiss movement, power stops being abstract. It becomes wearable, drivable, flauntable. Not everyone in North Korea wears a uniform, but the ones who do it right, they wear Gucci belts underneath. The hidden engine, Office 39. Every dictatorship needs money, but Kim Jong-un doesn't rely on taxes, exports, or public markets. His true power is funded by something darker, smarter, and nearly invisible. Inside the marble corridors of the Workers' Party headquarters lies Office 39, a covert economic machine built not to sustain a country, but to sustain one man. Officially, it doesn't exist. Unofficially, it moves billions of dollars each year, quietly feeding Kim's network of estates, armored trains, vintage wines, and ballistic ambitions. But unlike state-run ministries, this one doesn't operate within the law. It lives outside of it, functioning as a shadow finance ministry with global reach and no oversight. Its operations span a portfolio of activities that blur the line between underground syndicate and sovereign government. Counterfeit US dollars, nearly perfect in reproduction, are printed on high-grade presses using stolen ink formulas. Arms deals, often with sanctioned regimes, are brokered through shell companies registered in Hong Kong, Southeast Asia, and parts of Africa. Cyber theft, targeting international banks and crypto exchanges, has generated digital revenue streams that can't be traced or taxed. And layered atop it all are front companies, restaurants in Europe, trading firms in China, and even mining consortiums in Africa that serve as laundering vehicles for illicit income. Office 39 doesn't just bankroll Kim's lifestyle, it secures regime loyalty. Profits are distributed to the elites in the form of cars, villas, Swiss timepieces, and foreign currency bonuses. And the structure is insulated with overlapping jurisdictions, false paperwork, and diplomatic cover. Even when one node is exposed, another three remain untouched. The result? A parallel economy that functions like a private investment firm, with Kim as its sole beneficiary. Analysts estimate its total asset control exceeds $8 billion, and much of that never touches North Korean soil. It's stored in offshore accounts, reinvested through shadow funds, and guarded by international silence. Unlike traditional revenue sources, this one isn't sanctioned through policy, it's engineered through absence. No headquarters, no public balance sheet, just a moving target protected by state security, global legal loopholes, and pure intimidation. And while the world debates sanctions, Office 39 continues operating like a ghost, untouchable, untraceable, and absolutely essential. It's not just how Kim survives global pressure, it's how he outsmarts it. Because in North Korea, the engine behind power doesn't run on ideology. It runs on black market liquidity, weaponized secrecy, and a spreadsheet no one's allowed to see. Sanctions versus reality. For over a decade, the world has tried to isolate Kim Jong-un. Sanctions have targeted his banking systems, import channels, and luxury appetites. And yet, the paradox couldn't be more jarring. While the economy around him collapses, his personal lifestyle has only grown more extravagant. According to defector accounts and intelligence leaks, Kim's private expenditures have more than doubled since 2011. Not shrunk, not stagnated, doubled. His appetite for imported luxury goods, from French spirits to Italian furnishings, remains untamed, delivered via circuitous routes that evade inspection and traceability. Every year, the value of incoming luxury shipments, though technically blocked under UN Resolution 1718, still exceeds $800 million, much of it routed through front companies in China and Southeast Asia. So how does someone under full sanctions keep living like a global billionaire? It's not just evasion, it's adaptation. Kim's regime has built an alternative economy, parallel to global trade, yet plugged into it just enough to siphon what he needs. Gold bullion transactions, cryptocurrency laundering, art auctions through pseudonyms. His acquisitions are not flashy because they're seen, they're powerful because they're invisible, until used. His wardrobe, for instance, reportedly includes Brioni suits, Cartier watches, and custom crocodile skin loafers sourced through European dealers operating behind layers of intermediaries. His residences continue to be refitted with Versace interiors, chandeliers sourced from defunct Austrian embassies, and temperature-controlled vaults for aging rare wines. While the country pleads for food aid, Kim adds limited edition Bentleys to his motorcade. The more the world closes in, the more insulated he becomes. His assets are spread across offshore accounts in Macau, Dubai, and parts of Africa, managed through Office 39's financial tentacles, ensuring no single freeze order ever halts his flow. Even sanctioned vessels transporting oil into North Korea use transponders that blink off mid-route, swapping flags and ownership papers mid-sea. And the real cost? It's paid not in courtrooms or customs seizures. It's paid by a starving population watching as state-run media glorifies the supreme leader's sacrifices, while he enjoys multi-million-dollar yacht upgrades and adds to his private zoo collection. Sanctions were supposed to pressure the regime, but instead they've forced it to evolve, into a system that rewards loyalty, punishes visibility, and operates just beneath the radar of every international law designed to contain it. Kim doesn't fear sanctions. He builds palaces under them. The regime of wealth inequality. Kim Jong-un's lifestyle isn't just lavish, it's engineered to intimidate. Every gold-plated faucet, every armored limousine, every imported chandelier exists not for comfort, but for message. In a land where power is inherited and hunger is normalized, wealth becomes more than a luxury, it becomes a weapon. While the average citizen survives on under $1.5 a day, the regime spends millions importing Rolls-Royce Phantoms, Montblanc pens, and Hermes ashtrays, not because it needs them, but because it can. The more desperate the people become, the more extravagant the leader appears. That gap isn't accidental, it's intentional. It keeps the myth alive, that he is untouchable, ordained, and infinite. This is not a dictatorship built on brute force alone. It is a luxury-obsessed monarchy, funded through black market labor, stolen data, and global loopholes. It rewards silence with Swiss watches and punishes dissent with disappearance. The elite don't just obey, they aspire to be closer to the throne, because proximity means access to things the rest of the world takes for granted: Wi-Fi, sushi, electricity after sunset. And while the world debates human rights, the regime builds new wine cellars. In North Korea, opulence isn't private, it's political. Every custom suit, every cigar lit in a palace garden broadcasts a single message: this leader isn't part of the people. He exists above them. Comment: luxury is the new weapon if you believe power today isn't just measured in missiles, but in how far one man can rise while his entire nation is held below. In a world where most of his people face famine and isolation, Kim Jong-un built a kingdom of imported wine, bulletproof yachts, and Swiss designer watches, all funded through shadows. His life isn't just rich, it's untouchable, encrypted and immune to global outrage. While sanctions aim to corner him, his empire of secrecy grows louder. If you found this glimpse into absolute power compelling, hit like, tap subscribe, and join us as we expose the wealth behind the world's most elusive billionaires.